Yeah, so I'm Carrie Ankerstein. I am a visiting professor here at Kyushu University, but I am normally based in Germany at the Universität des Saarlandes. And I want to thank Raymond very much for letting me come back. I enjoyed my first Nerd Nite so much because the audience is wonderful. If you're a lecturer, you know what it's like to teach students. Your students sit there and they're really bored. They look so unhappy. But at a Nerd Nite, you're all awake, you're interested, it's marvelous. I love it. Thank you.
A little drunk?
That's even better. When I saw that there was no alcohol at the venue, I was like, oh no, because I'm funnier the drunker you are. So what I actually thought I would do, and I'm so happy to have this opportunity, is somebody asked me a marvelous question at the last Nerd Nite, and I didn't get an opportunity to answer the question very well, so I'm going to do that now. So some of you might want to read this text, and others of you might be happier reading this one. But it says, at my first Nerd Nite, somebody in the audience had a great question for me. Why do Japanese speakers have trouble reading this font, which, by the way, is called electroharmonics? But it's easy for English speakers to read.
That's a horrible font.
It's terrible.
This is hell
it's
for
terrible.
Japanese people.
Yes.
This is hell.
I showed this to one of my colleagues. I showed it to one of my colleagues, and she just looked at me like I was messing with her. I'm like, no, I can read this. So I thought I would start my second Nerd Nite answering this question, why some people have a hard time reading this. And when I was looking up the font, because I had seen the meme years ago, I knew exactly what font you were talking about. And I found this marvelous Instagram picture. It's somebody Instagramming their coffee. And it's from a coffee shop, a coffee chain that's based in Australia called Soul of Coffee. And I guess to be cool, they use electroharmonics. And I love the caption that somebody put on this. They said, hey babe, what's wrong? You barely touched your rarohire pero chichimomo. So it looks crazy. But for English speakers and probably Aussies, it's like, yeah, Soul of Coffee and it looks cool, right? So the thing is, this all goes back to automaticity. And at my first Nerd Nite, I talked about how automatic language processing is, right? When you see these pictures, you automatically recognize what they are. There's a fish, there's a tree, there's a cup of tea, right? You do not need to put any effort into this. And we do not need to put any effort into our native language. It happens instantly, automatically. So, again, I thought I'd play with you a little bit. You might notice this. I love to play with an audience. But I want you to all do this in your minds, because I think you're going to have different answers depending on whether you're fluent in Japanese. So you're going to answer these questions in your mind, right? You will have feelings about them, I'm sure. But I'm going to show you a bunch of words, and I want you to think, no yelling, but think about the color that the word appears in, just the color of the word, right? I'm going to present these words in hiragana. So if you can't read hiragana, this is going to be easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? So they're going to be presented in hiragana, and of course you can think of the color in Japanese, right? So this is in your mind. Okay. Okay, so I hurt you, some of you a little bit, right? If you don't read hiragana, you're like, yeah. But if you do read hiragana, like I felt your pain. You spoke your pain. So this is the classic Stroop effect, and I think a lot of us know about it, right? It's really hard to name the color of a word if that word is a color word and the color doesn't match, right? And it's one of the first experiments that really nicely showed that it's hard to turn off something that's automatic. It is so hard not to read those words if you can't. It happens automatically. And the only way to do this task is if you kind of turn off that automaticity, right? So, yeah. the same thing happens when we see letters. It's automatic recognition of these letters, right? So here, the kana symbol, this one right here that I'm pointing to, which I don't know if that will show up on the video, but it looks like a Y to English speakers. We're like, oh yeah, that's a Y, it's fantastic. But for kana readers, they're like, that's an it's an what are you people doing, right? And it's really, really hard not to see that kana symbol as an sound, making it almost impossible to read the electroharmonics font, because you automatically recognize what those symbols are, and now you have to switch it off, right? So let's talk about how fast automatic processing is. It's crazy fast. So I'm going to show you a series of words, one at a time. First, you're going to see words in hiragana, but then I'm going to show you some words in English, and you'll see how quickly you can recognize words. Are you ready? Let's go.
Faster.
That's kind of intense. Yeah, faster, right?
Faster.
I think if we can read hiragana, that wasn't too bad. And if we can read English, that also wasn't too bad, right? So we read very quickly. We recognize words very quickly. In my research, I sometimes do experiments where I test how fast people can tell the difference between a word and a non-word in English. And the average response time is about 250 milliseconds, a quarter of a second. People are really, really fast. So when Japanese speakers read the electroharmonics, they have a hard time switching off that automatic processing, right? And seeing these symbols as English letters instead, but of course they're Latin, right? It's like trying to say blue when you see that. It's really, really hard. Now, the thing is, this doesn't only happen in the visual realm. This also happens when we hear language. That's also really fast and automatic. And of course that makes sense, because most of the language that we encounter, or at least in the early days, is spoken language. We are very good at understanding our spoken language from different voices and people with different accents, right? And that's because we started really early. One of the very first things we learn about language is the set of sounds that is important for our native language. And that's set when we're 12 months old. When we're a year old, we're like, yep, I got my English sounds, I'm golden, right? You can imagine then what it's like when you're 10 years old after all of that practice and you have to learn another language. Or God forbid, you're a 20-year-old and you move to Germany and you have to learn another language. It's really hard because our sounds are set when we're so young. And we know this because we studied babies. And some of you might have met babies before. They don't really do what you want them to do, right? You cannot ask a baby, hey man, you're gonna hear some sounds. When you hear this one, press this button, and the other button is for the other sound. That doesn't work. But researchers are very smart, and they came up with a way to test babies using what babies do naturally. And babies suck. I'm sorry, they suck on their pacifiers, right? So if you put a pacifier in a baby's mouth, it'll suck, and it'll usually have a normal sucking rate, right? But people notice that babies will suck on the pacifier faster when they're interested, when something interesting happens. And then they'll relax and they'll go back to their regular weight. So researchers went, aha, what if we played a sound like ba, 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 and the baby's like, yeah, same old sound. But then we change it to pa. They're like, whoa, that's different, and they'll start to suck faster. So they've made these types of dummies with sensors in them so they can check the rate of the sucking. And it's one of my favorite experiment names ever. It's high amplitude sucking, which I just think is fantastic. But it allows us to test preverbal babies. And using these kinds of methods, we found that I say we, I don't do work with children, I work with adults. But other researchers have found that when babies, newborns to about 6 months, if they hear any sound of the world's languages, they can tell the difference between that sound and another sound. Really no trouble, right? But once we hit about a year of age, we begin to specialize for our native language, and we begin to automatically recognize the sounds of our native language, and we categorize those very, very quickly. And Patricia Kuhl and her colleagues have been studying this for years, and this is a study that I use in my classes a lot, and I'm so delighted about how relevant it is here today. So it's a study looking at American babies and Japanese babies for the ra-la contrast, right? Yes, my students want to cry about it. My students in Germany want to cry about the va-wa contrast, right? It's really, really hard. And anyone who's learned another language knows it's really hard to learn these different sounds and hear the difference, right? People will tell you there's a difference between them, but you can't hear it, right? Let me tell you why. So in their experiment, they tested two groups of babies. One group of baby was between 6 to 8 months old, and the other group was about 10 to 12 months old. And like I said, they were testing American babies and Japanese babies. So they were looking at how accurate these babies were at noticing that there's a sound change. So if they're hearing ra, 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 and then all of a sudden it turns to la, if they start sucking faster, that's a correct, right? That's a correct answer. They've noticed a change. If they make no response at all, okay, that's an incorrect change. So you can see the percent correct there on the y-axis. It doesn't go to 100 because even adults would make mistakes too. We're never at really 100%. But let's look at the data for the American babies first. And you'll notice that at around 6 to 8 months, they start out being about 65% accurate, but as they get older, they get better at the distinction, right? That makes so much sense. It's an important contrast for English speakers. Yeah, you would expect that they do get better. The interesting thing was for Japanese babies. And interestingly, they start out at the same point as the American babies, around 65%, and then they get worse, right? Like the accuracy just really drops off, and they're like, yeah, whatever, there's no difference, it's fine.
They're like moody.
Yeah, totally. But that's because, like, of course they can't, because it's not an important sound contrast in Japanese. You're not going to waste your brain space on that. You don't need it, right? And what this means, though, is that for Japanese speakers, if they learn English later in life, which they will because of the school system, they will have a hard time hearing the difference between this contrast, right? And it will be really hard to override that automatic system and to pay attention to the different sounds that English has. So, and it's really hard, and I know it's hard. Now, unfortunately, I don't speak as much Japanese as I wish I would after being here for quite a while. But I am a fluent speaker of German, and I learned German as an adult. I started at age 14 in school and then moved to Germany when I was 20. And I had the same difficulties that all second language learners have. So I thought I'd tell you a story about my life in Germany. So that says I'm a linguist, and obviously when I meet people I say I'm a linguist because, you know, that's an obvious way to start a conversation. And people will always ask me, how many languages do you speak? And I really hate that. I hate that for two reasons. One, that's not what linguists do. Linguists study the way languages work. They study languages as system. And the other reason is because I only speak two languages fluently. I speak English and German, right? And sometimes I do ask myself, do I really speak German? I'm not perfect. Let me give you an example. So I'm from Wisconsin, and when I arrived in Germany at the age of 20, like 7 years ago, when I arrived in Germany, why are you laughing, sir? But when I arrived in Germany, I would, talk to people, and they'd ask me where I was from, and I said U.S. Like, yeah, we're in the U.S., Wisconsin, and I would talk about Wisconsin. Huh?
Hey, go Pack Go.
Go Packer Backer?
Go Pack Go.
Oh yeah, go Pack Go, but like in my day we said Packer Backer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay. That's a linguist.
You're doing the new
I'm
stuff.
old.
You're doing the new stuff.
None new.
But I would tell people about how wonderful Wisconsin is. I would tell them about our beautiful cows, more cows than people, our beautiful farms, and I even said this. And the reaction of the person I was talking to surprised me so much. I went, oh, no. I meant this other word. So what happened is I forgot how important dots are in Germany. Dots are very important. I used to think they were just decorations, but let me tell you what dots do. So I said the word schwul. No dots, it means homosexual. So I told people Wisconsin is super gay in the summer, which would be awesome, right? A little bit weird that it's only in the summer, but you know, whatever. But that's what I said, and the person I was talking to was like so fascinated by this, and I thought, is that interesting? Everywhere is hot in the summer, because schwül with the dots means humid. Yeah, so I messed it up. Because in those days, I couldn't hear the difference between U and Ü. Kind of the same to me. So I just pronounced words the way I would naturally pronounce them. And it wasn't until I had this conversation where I thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to learn that. I get around it now. I don't say the word schwül because of the dots. I say Luftfeuchtigkeit, which is many more syllables, but is easier actually to say, at least for me.
Wait, so how would you say like hot and humid homosexuals?
You would use a different word. Okay. Yeah, like it doesn't really, like schwül is really, it's just, schwül is really just for weather, right? And it's a perfect word for Japanese weather. I mean, it's, yeah. Yes, that's great, ruining that. But obviously, like, we laughed our asses off. I mean, it was a fabulous mistake. And that's actually my feeling about language mistakes. They're usually just really fun and kind of great. But I thought I'd tell you, like, basically what happened. So that's a normal brain. I don't have one of those. I have an English-speaking brain, right? Because I was raised in the English language. And basically what happens is there's kind of like an auditory illusion effect, right? That when I heard this strange foreign sound, right? This is the German Ü sound. When I heard that, it goes into my English-speaking brain, and I perceived it as an English vowel. I couldn't really hear how it was different to an English vowel, right? And it wasn't until a linguistics class that I finally understood, oh, what kind of sound it is. I'll do that at my next Nerd Night. So basically, this is kind of the same thing that we saw with the ra, la. So when I was a baby, I got really bad at the ü, u difference because I didn't need it, right? And German babies, of course, would get better at it. So yeah, so like this kind of happens, it's kind of normal. Back to our Japanese example. So this means that when Japanese speakers hear English ra, goes into the Japanese brain, and you perceive that sound, right? However, when you hear English la, goes through the Japanese brain, and you hear that sound, you perceive them as exactly the same sound, right? And you slowly lose your mind when people gaslight you and insist that they're different, right? So I thought I would do a little bit of articulatory phonetics interlude for any of you who are interested. Maybe you're a Japanese speaker and you're like, yeah, how do I do this? Or you want to help somebody figure out how to do this. So of course we have these two sounds in English. We have la as in light, lice, and late. And we have ra as in right, rice, and rate, right? Different words meaning distinguishing, right? So when we make the la sound, this is what's going on in our mouth. So that's our head, obviously. That's our nose, those are our lips, our teeth, and this is our tongue. Our tongue is touching our alveolar ridge. That's the little thing behind your teeth, right? So if you say na-na, the tip of your tongue is touching your alveolar ridge, right? So when you make an ul sound, it has to be touching, totally touching, right? And when we say ul, the air comes out the sides of the mouth, producing that lateral approximate, right? That ra. Now, when we make an R sound, kind of similar, but the tongue isn't touching the alveolar ridge, right? It's not touching. And I tell my students to imagine they have eyeballs on the end of their tongue. And if they were to make an sound, their tongue would be staring at their alveolar ridge. The eyes wouldn't be smashed into it, they'd just be staring at it, right? And I'm trying to do that to help them know the physical difference in their mouths between la and ra, and maybe eventually they'll begin to hear it and they'll be able to produce it a little bit better. But our native languages definitely do affect the way we hear things, right? We don't just hear things objectively. Oh yeah, and this is a really important contrast for reasons, because we have a bowl of rice. We do not want a bowl of lice, right? Because lice is shiromi. Nobody wants a bowl of shirami. And my AI image generator did not want a bowl of lice. I got an error message. It's like, yeah, man, I can't do that. I'm out. And be very thankful, because I think you can all imagine what a bowl of shirami would look like. It's a tool, and it depends on what you're asking the tool to do, right? Like a hammer doesn't suck and a screwdriver doesn't suck, but if you're using them for the wrong thing, yeah, they're gonna suck, right? So you can't ask it to do things it can't do, right? It also depends on the training, but that's another Nerd Nite. I thought if I sneakily have enough time, I would do another auditory illusion with you. So that's me. Can't see my mouth. I'm gonna play the audio, and I just want you just to think about like what you hear me saying. I'm only gonna say one syllable over and over again, okay? But just have a listen. Ba, 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 ba. So you know what I'm saying, right?
It's a sheep.
What am I saying?
Ba.
I am a sheep. Yes. Actually, I'm not a sheep. I'm very much not a sheep. They would have burned me at the stake. Right? But yes, I'm saying ba, 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 right? Now I'm going to take away that black square from my mouth so you can see my mouth, and now I want you to tell me what I'm saying. Ba, ba, ba. What do you hear? Ba,
Ba.
yeah.
Ba.
You hear fa, fa, fa.
Fa.
Yeah, I'm actually, it's voiceless. Yeah, I'm saying fa, fa, fa. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
audio quality.
Yeah, yeah, possibly the audio. I only know it because I made that video. Now I'm going to play the same video for you, where you can see my mouth. But I want, well, actually, I'll tell you. I'll tell you to look away, and I'll tell you to look up, right? And just, we'll see what happens.
So look away now.
Look away.
No, so like watch my face, watch my teeth. Yes, I needed braces. No, I didn't get them. But watch my mouth and think about what you're hearing. And then at some point, I'll just tell you to turn away, right? Okay, so here we go. No! Raymond, make your computer work. No, that's a terrible freeze frame. There we go. Ba, ba, ba. Ba, okay, you hear me saying fa, fa, fa? Look away. Ba, ba, ba. Ba. Look again. Ba, ba. Ba, ba,
Yeah, it's different.
ba. Yeah. I'm actually saying ba, ba, ba in everything you've seen, right? It's always ba, ba, ba. This effect actually works on me, even though that's my face, my voice. I made the videos. I know that it's a certain visual overlay, and I put a different sound file on top. I made it. Works on me, right? And this shows us how auditory processing works, right? We don't just hear stuff and it goes into our brain, right? No. Sometimes we see or we hear with our eyes, right? So the visual stimulus here actually affects what we perceive. And this is called the McGurk effect, if you've ever come across it. It's a fairly well-known phenomenon that you can change people's perception based on what they see. And using ba, 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 and fa, fa, fa are really common sounds because you can easily see them. Some people try to do it with da, 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 and ga, 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 but you can't really see that as much, right? But we also kind of have the auditory illusion when it comes to our native language, right? We don't naturally hear something and like, oh yeah, we know what that is. Our native language can sometimes affect that, right? So coming to the end of my talk, just to give you a summary so that you can survive the quiz later, we talked about automatic letter recognition, right? We talked about word recognition and about sound perception and how our native language can affect that. And we also talked about sound perception and what we see, how that can also affect it. So that's it for me. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Wait, hold on, before you, like, if you're gonna clap. I'll just end with this slide. If you want to geek out, these are some really great books that are written for like non-academics. I've enjoyed all of them. And the QR code is a link to a linguistics podcast, which is really fantastic. So thank you so much for being a marvelous audience, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Yeah, floor is open to questions. I'll go back up with you first.
Have you heard about instant like people who wake up from a long period of coma, and then the person starts speaking a foreign language that he never learned?
Yeah.
I wonder what causes that kind of symptom.
Okay, so that's called foreign accent syndrome, right? And there's a couple of famous cases out there. There's a British woman who had some sort of brain injury, and she started to speak as if she was Jamaican. She spoke English, but it just had like Jamaican cadence. And then there's another case of a Norwegian woman, also had some sort of brain injury, but she began to speak Norwegian, but with like a German-sounding accent, which was very shortly after World War II, and she found it very ostracizing from her community. And everyone was surprised, especially the British woman who had never been to Jamaica, didn't speak any other languages. And in these cases, the people are not speaking German or patois. They're not doing that. But what it shows is our language in our brain has many different components, right? There's the individual sounds that I talked about today. I talked about individual consonants, but then there's also intonation and stress patterns, right, on top of that. And with foreign accent syndrome, as far as I understand, what's been impaired is the processing mechanisms for intonation and stress. They've gone a little bit strange. And they just sound to us like Jamaican, or they sound to us like German, but it's just because that component of their language has been affected. When it comes to brain damage, actually this book, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, is really, really interesting. But language can break down in very strange ways, right? It can give us a weird sounding accent. We can lose our ability to put together sensible sentences. We just lose our grammar. But sometimes we keep our words. So we can say doctor, teeth, 10 o'clock Wednesday, and we understand, dentist appointment, 10 o'clock on Wednesday, right? But we don't have any grammar words in there. That's a really interesting phenomenon called foreign accent syndrome. Those people aren't speaking in a new language, it's that their rhythm processing has gone a little bit haywire. It's a great question.
Thanks.
Yeah.
My question is, so I thought experiments with babies and their comprehension and lack of comprehension of sounds is very interesting. I'm currently raising my second one who is almost 2 months old.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm wondering about bilingual babies. What happens with that?
I would suppose that they would be good at differentiating between the sounds of their languages, right? So if your babies are being raised in English and Japanese, they'll just learn the sounds for English and Japanese and still be able to make those distinctions, but only for English and Japanese, right? Maybe being bilingual might help them with other languages because they're aware of different systems and that kind of thing. But as far as I know, they would just learn both sets of sounds.
So does it mean that their kind of learning curve just goes up as if they were just, let's say, Latvian in my case?
Yeah.
Or they just go to a medium kind of curve?
I would guess that they probably just look like native speakers, right? Because they're native speakers, they just have 2 native languages, right? I think sometimes with bilingualism, there's a bit of a delay. Bilingual children, they learn the languages just fine. People worry about it, but they're fine. But they might just be a little bit slower than monolingual babies.
It's
Just
interesting.
from a personal experience, yeah, that's how I grew up with Japanese and English. And the last time we did learning the 2 languages was a little longer, but generally, the household we speak English and Japanese. There's no switching.
I'm also
Sorry, Raymond.
bilingual.
Do you have a third?
A third language?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I'm also bilingual,
Yeah.
so I experienced the same.
Mhm.
But I'm really interested in what happens with young children's kind of language perception use, because I think my case is a bit I think there are many cases like that, but Like, for example, my son, he's 2.5, he consumes a lot of things in English because there is an abundance of things in English on YouTube for kids. But there's not too many things, high quality things in Latin.
Yeah.
So he naturally consumes more things in English.
Yeah.
Almost none in Japanese because that's how we've moderated our media in my house.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting that sometimes he shows some stronger traits in English and sometimes stronger traits in Latin. Those things kind of rival. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, we, like in the research, people talk about balanced bilinguals. So some people are bilingual, but they'll have like a stronger language. Sometimes that's the language that is spoken in the country. But some people are balanced bilinguals where they have like the same kind of literacy in both languages and the same strength. Because I think there are some cases where people might understand a language, but they can't speak it or they can't write it, right? Or they couldn't do academic work in that language, right? Yeah.
One more.
Also, Mazel Tov, congratulations.
Okay, last question. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, this whole thing started.
This was all based on your question.
So I have a question about L sound.
Yes.
Japanese people, or other Japanese, we have spent so much energy learning L and R sound.
Yes.
But the more we got information about how to do this, the more confusing. Because L sound, there are basically two types of pronunciation. Light L and dark L.
Yeah.
The sounds are different. The dark L, that doesn't closely touch the upper part.
Yeah, well, I was going to go back, but like, I have like 150 slides in there. Actually, Raymond, if you're faster at finding the L slide.
What I want to ask you is there any recommendation how we should learn?
Okay. I would say probably don't worry about clear L and dark L.
What is dark L?
So I'll tell you in a second. But basically, clear L and dark L, they're variations of the same sound, but they don't change the meaning of the word. They just sound a little bit different, right? It doesn't change the meaning. Just pick the one you like and use it, right? British speakers have a tendency to use both. American speakers use dark L all the time. And dark L, Raymond, you're a magician. So a clear L, if you look at the tongue, right, the tongue is touching the alveolar ridge, and the body of the tongue is low in the mouth. This is a clear L. This is like the sound that you would have in little. So if you say, sorry, that's a terrible word because there's two L's in it. If you say like, right, if you also say like, you might notice that the body of your tongue is relatively low in your mouth. But if you say pool, the body of your tongue, this bit right here, is going to be high in your mouth. That's the dark L, right? That's the difference between like pool with a clear L and pool with a dark L. If I say pool, everyone knows I said pool. I just sound a little German, right? Well, that's all right, right? But if I say pool, then I sound a little bit more natural. So I wouldn't worry about clear L and dark L. They don't change the meaning.
Yes, when I pronounce it, I don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Listening is very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Really, we need to get
Okay,
they're really about videos. Like the Japanese don't have to worry about them. I think you should worry about the R's.
Yes, mostly. Yeah,
Because
mostly.
the L is, it's all there is.
So, we have
yet.
a hard cutoff in
Oh,
terms of we have
oh.
one more speaker. So,
But I think that's a really great
but,
question.
Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you very much. Thank you.